It was actually way cooler than I expected it to be.
Wow, this is very intuitive.
That was cool. Oh, I did it!
Unbelievable.
That was really fun, and that was a lot easier than I thought it would be.
Welcome to Upward with Transfr, where we tackle our evolving workforce and how educators, governments, and industries are changing to keep up. We're dedicated to building effective pathways for workers and job seekers to get the skills they need to get into well-paying careers in high-growth industries. Our part in that is designing and distributing hands-on simulations that learners can use to explore new career options and develop core skills before entering an in-person vocational training program. Transfr simulations augment human educators, broadening their range of classroom possibilities without expensive facilities build-outs or specialized equipment. I'm Jack Sislak, Editorial Director at Transfr, and your host for this episode. I'm joined by Transfr's own Yoonjin Roh, PhD, Director of Data Science, and Keith Lyle, PhD, Director of Learning Science. Let's jump in. Now that VR training has arrived in a growing number of industries and training centers, one of the main questions surrounding it is it effective? Rather than rely solely on anecdotal evidence, Transfr has assembled an industry-leading team of learning experts to measure the effectiveness of VR simulations in a variety of settings with different audiences and populations. I'm joined today by Drs. Keith Lyle and Yoonjin Roh, who are two of those experts, and their team has been undertaking a variety of efficacy studies to prove to ourselves, our clients, the people we hope to serve, that our VR simulations are effective. And the results of the first few studies have come back. They're very inspiring. It's awesome to be joined by both of you in the studio today. And please just go ahead and introduce yourselves. We'll go alphabetically by first name. So we'll start with you, Keith, and then we'll jump into these questions. So please tell our audience who you are.
Hi, Jack. I'm Keith Lyle, and I am a cognitive psychologist. My title at Transfr is the Director of Learning Science.
Hello, I'm Yoonjin. I'm a data scientist with education and learning research background. And I'm very passionate about learning, understanding our learners and their behaviors and thought processes.
Excellent. Awesome. So let's start off with you, Yoonjin. Please tell us more about your team within Transfr, the kind of work you're all doing, and then Keith, you'll jump in here and add some details as well, please. So bring us into it, please.
So both of us, we are in the learning intelligence team at Transfr. So the learning intelligence team, we are leveraging learning science and learning research, data science, and machine learning to analyze the learners' data. And obviously, we collect data and feedback from our learners and educators. And we basically use that data to identify any areas for product improvement. And basically, we want to help them succeed and achieve their goals. So that's what we are doing. And Keith?
Well, I'll just add that the learning intelligence team at Transfr is actually, I think, somewhat unusual in that for a relatively small company, we have devoted these kinds of resources to supporting, our research avenue, our major goals for the company, which is understanding, how well our product contributes to learning. It's one thing for, the mega corporations out there to have their research teams, but I think it's quite unusual actually for a relatively small company to be taking this so seriously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's been a high point of my career as a writer to work with both of you on some of these efficacy studies out there. If you're listening and you haven't checked out the efficacy studies, we'll drop the link in the show notes so you can go take a look at those. They're really great. And that's what made me want to put this episode together. So back over to you, Yoonjin, you can both fill in these details. But what are these efficacy studies and why are we doing them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think about the efficacy research in the company, broadly, this is a constant evaluation process of our learning products and experiences so that we can examine what works and what doesn't work. So then the natural question can be, why do we do that? Because knowing what works, what doesn't work is the way to identify our improvement areas. Obviously, we will have some success stories from our customers. That's good. That can be the best practices. We can set the strategy, how we can actually implement our product as part of our learning system. So that's good. But when we identify what doesn't work, then that can be used for product improvement opportunities. And all learners are different. So testing, evaluating our product for all different types of learners is also important. In this way, we can constantly improve our product by listening to our customers.
And I'll add that when you're studying a new technology, there's always this phenomena that's sort of known as an enthusiasm peak, where everybody thinks the new big thing is going to revolutionize some field. And people who study tech have spoken about this, right? Because there's a long history of this. Every new thing is thought to be revolutionary. And then often following that peak, there's a real valley of sort of disillusionment, I should say, where people don't feel that the technology has lived up to its promise. And I think as Yunjin and I see it, the way to avoid that kind of valley is through rigorous study, right? Don't just let the enthusiasm carry the day, let the data carry the day, see where the tech is working well and where it's not. And if there are shortcomings where it's not living up to what we want, then try to improve it so that it is.
We want to emphasize that we follow strict academic research standards to protect our student privacy, confidentiality. So ethical research is very important part of our research processes. So I think that we should emphasize that as part of this efficacy research. So the data collection and procedure of how we protect our student data, it's part of our research processes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Every tech company really wants to say, oh, we're data driven. Oh, we do the research. We want to build the best product possible. But this is definitely how we deliver on that here at Transfr for sure. And then taking a step back, and this is something I'm really interested to learn, is sort of tell our audience a bit about the state of this kind of research in the VR/XR field overall. I think that would give our listeners a lot of context.
So, what I can say is that, so in recent years, as VR has been gaining attention, many researchers found positive impact of VR on learning outcomes. And especially the advantages of using VR, immersive learning, is providing learners with experience like real life, especially when it's very challenging to be in the actual real world situations, because it can be dangerous, it can be expensive. So we also have seen it from our customers as well. And good amount of evidence shows that VR promotes student engagement, motivation. So we have found it from our customers as well. And, especially engagement is an important student success indicator. So, there is a lot of research that showed engagement being highly correlated with student school achievement. So knowing that our products also provide high engagement for our students is a very good confirmation.
Yeah, Yunjin's quite right that when you look at engagement, it's high when people use VR. My primary goal since joining Transfr has been to look at a slightly different question, which is whether VR is helping people either acquire more information or retain more information, right? So it's sort of, you could think of it as like the distinction between how much people are just initially grasping or understanding from a lesson, and then how much they're taking away from it, though, after a few days or after a week. And when you look at the literature there, you find that it's much more sparse. So immersive virtual reality, which is what Transfr deals in, has only been widely available for about the last 10 years. In that time, a number of studies have been done, but they've been really scattered across a lot of different industries, a lot of different topics, right? Like the topics that people have been trying to teach in immersive virtual reality. And because it's been so scattered, it's hard to make any general claims about how well immersive virtual reality might be working to promote learning. Transfr is really uniquely positioned to provide relevant information because it covers this very large variety of industries and has this immense library of hundreds of simulations. So it's this terrific playground for a researcher like me, where we can look at many, many different simulations, many different industries, and again, try to find general principles that apply across all of them.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just really cool to hear that kind of detail and give our audience that context of like, yeah, sure, there's been some research in this area, but like not really with the opportunity that we have here at Transfr with that breadth of different categories and these different audiences that we're doing these studies with, which again, we're going to talk more about that, listeners, so stay tuned. But yeah, now we've had some context for sort of where the industry has been and where that kind of research is. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about your backgrounds individually as to sort of like where the work you're doing now dovetails with what you've done in the past?
So for me, it's a continuation of my previous work and experience in the sense that we conduct research and analytics to understand our learners so that we can create a better learning experience for our learners. In that way, we can help them enjoy their learning, achieve their goals. And learning should be a fun part of our journeys, exploring different career options. But the difference and rewarding part that I want to highlight in my current job is, as Keith mentioned, we work with a broad range of learners from all different backgrounds with non-linear, non-traditional pathways. So this is a unique opportunity. As I mentioned before, all learners are different. And we are working with all different learners to understand how our products work differently for all different types of learners. And we can really help them in a very personalized and individualized way.
Yeah, for me too, it's a very natural continuation. So I've been studying learning and memory for 25 long years now, I guess, since I graduated college. And I've done lots of classroom studies, sort of traditional classroom studies, trying to help students retain more of the information they learn in their classes. And that was very rewarding in its own right. But what was missing was, sort of as Yoon-Jin was talking about, was being able to work with a much, much broader group of learners. And in many cases, a less privileged group of learners, right? College students, although they too come in all sort of varieties, have a lot of built-in advantages. It's how they got to college in the first place. Transfr has this really special mission where it's trying to help folks who need help the most to get on a career pathway. And so being able to work in that area is really, really rewarding as sort of a second act of my career.
Wow, that is awesome. And Keith, great setup too for my next question here, which is from a learning perspective, what are the challenges facing people who want to learn a new trade and how might VR help? So that really, I think, dovetails with, and yes, anybody out there, if you haven't looked at any of our other content or blog stuff, like we're constantly talking about just trying to help people from traditionally underserved communities or people with very unique challenges or what we call just pools of undiscovered talent, people who really need that opportunity to change their lives and especially to learn a trade. Yeah, please take it away, Keith and Yoon-Jin. Tell us about these challenges and maybe where VR can help.
Well, one challenge that always faces folks who want to move into, say, a new vocation is just that there's a mountain of information that needs to be mastered. So what do you do about that, right? It's very daunting, right? When someone tries to approach a field like that, they may be really interested in doing the work, but then they think, well, but I'll never learn all of this, right? And virtual reality has the potential to really help with that by allowing people to go more directly from just a traditional approach of, say, reading textbooks or watching instructional videos. They can move into more rapidly right into the exciting part, which is the more hands-on part of doing the job, right? That normally has to be deferred a little bit as you take some of those typical classroom experiences and then you get your hands dirty a little bit. VR lets you get your hands virtually dirty a lot faster. So I think that's a real advantage. Also, as we talk about these populations that we're trying to serve, a lot of them have been out of the classroom for a long time or never really had the same rich experience of schooling that maybe some other folks have. And so they are not going to necessarily be that excited about training that's going to have to put them back in seats in classrooms and such, right? And VR, again, lets us sort of do a little bit of a runaround there and instead let people do something that hopefully they're a lot more excited about.
Yeah, and what I want to add, especially for young learners, like even fifth graders and sixth graders, we also work with these young learners. But these young learners want to explore, many career options that they have even thought about and they didn't simply know about. So then without having to go to the physical, location, without just relying on online resources or indirect information from somebody else, they can actually put in a headset, they can actually try the new job fields so that they can actually learn with their hands in the headset. So that's the advantage of, VR technology as well.
Okay, that's a really great spot to end part 1. Be sure to join us for part 2, where we pick up with what we're measuring, the audiences we're working with, and much more.